They say in the village of Ngoro, when the moon turns red and the wind stops moving, the dead come looking for faces to borrow. Some call it a myth. Others call it justice. But the elders whisper that once, a man named Kojo learned what happens when a living soul forgets to honor the dead, and a spirit decides to take what was once denied. Kojo was a hunter, proud and fearless. His hands had taken many lives. Animals, sometimes people, but never guilt. He believed the forest feared him. He never realized the forest had been watching. It began one night, when Kojo returned from a forbidden hunt. His spear was still dripping blood from a white gazelle, an animal said to belong to the spirits. As he washed his hands in the river, the water shimmered, and for a moment, he saw another face beneath his own reflection. Not human, not alive, and smiling. He blinked, it was gone. But that night his mother woke screaming. She said Kojo stood at her door, though he had been asleep in his hut. And in the morning she found footprints outside, the same size as his. The villagers whispered that something had followed Kojo home from the forest. Something that wanted what was his. And they were right. Because soon, Kojo would meet the spirit who wore his skin. Ngoro sat at the edge of an ancient forest where the air was always thick. Like the trees themselves breathed secrets. The people of the village lived by the old rules. Never hunt what glows under moonlight. Never speak your name aloud in the dark. And never ever look at your reflection after midnight. Kojo broke all three. He was known across the villages as Kojo the Fearless. He hunted lions, sold tusks to traders, and wore the scars of beasts like medals. But behind the pride was hunger, not for food but for more. More glory, more gold, more proof that he was untouchable. The white gazelle had been his final challenge. Legend said whoever killed it would gain the power to walk unseen between worlds. It was sacred to Alyawa, the guardian of thresholds, a spirit who punished those who forgot humility. Kojo didn't believe in spirits, only trophies. When he finally killed the gazelle, its blood shimmered like silver under the moon. He felt the air still, the trees bend, and for a moment, the forest looked back at him. He laughed. The forest bows to me. But the forest was not bowing. It was listening. That night, Kojo's dog refused to enter his hut. His shadow stretched wrong. Longer, sharper, like it didn't belong to him. His mother, Nia, an old widow who still burned herbs for protection, sensed something had changed. She placed a charm above his door and told him, "When the dead envy the living, they borrow their faces. Keep your mirror covered, my son." Kojo rolled his eyes. Old tales for old women. The next morning, villagers found the gazelle's carcass outside the village, placed neatly like an offering returned. Its eyes were missing. Its skin hung from a tree, moving in the wind though the air was still. Kojo felt no fear, only irritation. He went to the forest again, daring whatever spirit lingered to show itself. When he returned, his mother said quietly, "You should not have gone back. The forest remembers the blood you spilled." That night, Kojo dreamt of the gazelle walking on two legs, wearing his own face. He woke drenched in sweat, but when he turned toward the door, he saw himself standing there. Same eyes, same scars, but smiling wider than any man should. Then darkness swallowed him whole. Days passed. Kojo became strange. He would wake with mud on his feet though he hadn't left his hut. His mother swore she heard him talking to someone at night, a low, mirrored voice repeating his words just a moment after he spoke. Once a child pointed at him in the market and cried, "Mama, why does that man have two faces?" Kojo grabbed the boy in rage, but when he saw his reflection in the child's eyes, there it was again, that second face smiling behind his own. He began to cover all mirrors, all still water. But the more he tried to hide, the closer the reflection came. One evening, Kojo met the village healer, old Nana Efua, a woman who knew the whispers of spirits. She looked into his eyes and froze. "You have invited something that remembers pain." She told him that Alua's servant, the borrowing spirit, had claimed his reflection. It would slowly wear his skin, piece by piece, until nothing of him remained. The only way to break the bond was to return what was taken, not the gazelle's flesh, but its spirit. He needed to go back to the exact place he had killed it, perform a ritual of surrender, and ask forgiveness before the moon turned full. But Kojo's pride was still his curse. He refused. "I do not kneel to shadows. If the spirit wants me, let it come." That night it did. Kojo awoke to scratching sounds, like nails on wood. Then whispers. His own voice, echoing softly. "Kojo, let me in." The door creaked open, and there he stood. His reflection made flesh. Its skin was pale, stretched too tight, eyes hollow but burning with gold light. It smiled and said, "You are wearing what belongs to me." Kojo lunged at it, but his hands passed through mist. The spirit laughed, the sound like broken glass grinding. It pressed its hands against his chest, and suddenly Kojo felt his bones burning, his veins freezing, his heartbeat split in two. When he screamed, the voice that came out wasn't his. It was both of them speaking as one. The spirit whispered, "Now you know what it is to be hunted." When he woke, his mother was gone. The hut was torn apart. He ran into the night calling her name, and from the forest she answered. He followed the sound until he reached the clearing where the white gazelle had died. And there, under the bleeding moon, stood his mother, or what was left of her. Her body moved like a puppet, her eyes blind with light. The spirit spoke through her lips. "You took what was mine, Kojo. Now I take what you love." He fell to his knees, weeping, begging forgiveness. But the spirit only smiled. "You wear pride as your skin. I will wear you as mine." The forest was no longer a place. It had become a living thing, breathing with him, whispering with every step he took. Kojo stumbled through the fog, clutching his chest as if holding his soul in. The wind was thick with whispers, each one speaking his name. Kojo. Kojo the fearless. Kojo the thief. He wanted to scream, but his throat burned as if something inside was trying to climb out. Every tree trunk seemed to tilt toward him, faces forming in the bark, eyes blinking open. He reached Nana Efua's hut again, desperate and shaking. The old healer was already waiting, her hands trembling but her gaze steady. "You came back," she said softly. "It's inside me," Kojo gasped. "It's wearing me." His voice broke into two tones, his, and another deeper one echoing underneath, like a spirit speaking through his lungs. Efua drew a circle of white chalk on the ground, surrounding him. She sprinkled ash, salt, and crushed bones of sacred birds. Then she placed 4 candles, each facing a direction of the spirit world. "Sit," she ordered. "Can you save me?" "No human can save a man who challenged the gods," she said. "But the ancestors can decide if your soul is worth taking back." Kojo collapsed inside the circle. His skin was changing, shifting shades, rippling like waves beneath his flesh. Suddenly, his reflection shimmered on the opposite wall, a figure standing in the shadows, smiling with teeth too sharp. "You cannot cage me, healer," it hissed. "He is mine." He spilled the sacred blood. Efua began to chant in an ancient tongue. The fire flickered, her voice merging with the rhythm of drums that seemed to come from nowhere. Kojo screamed as invisible claws tore through his back. Steam rose from his skin, symbols burning into his shoulders, the mark of the borrowing spirit. Efua poured oil into the fire. The flames shot high, illuminating the hut with golden light. And in that moment Kojo saw the spirit's true face. It was not a monster. It was the white gazelle. Its eyes were endless, sorrowful, full of betrayal. "You took my freedom," it said through the reflection. "I will take yours." Kojo's body twisted violently. His bones cracked, his jaw dislocated, his eyes turned pale. He clawed at his own skin as if trying to peel something off, but the spirit was fusing into him. Efua cried out, "You must surrender what you took. Give back its spirit. Call its name." "I don't know its name," he shouted. The spirit laughed, a sound like leaves shredding in a storm. "Because you never listened to the forest when it whispered." The candles blew out one by one. The air turned freezing cold. From the darkness, hundreds of eyes appeared, small, glowing, watching. Spirits of the forest had come to witness judgment. Kojo fell to the ground, trembling. His hands were no longer his. They had turned white and slender, with hooves where fingers had been. Efua cried out in horror. "It's taking your form completely." Kojo's voice became distorted, two souls screaming through one throat. "Help me, please." Efua held her staff high. "Alyawa, guardian of thresholds, I call you to balance what is broken." Thunder rolled. The hut shook. Fire exploded outward, circling them both in a ring of light. The spirit shrieked, retreating into Kojo's chest, clawing from within. He screamed, blood pouring from his mouth, his eyes glowing gold. "You cannot separate us," the spirit howled. "He belongs to the forest now." Efua slammed her staff into the ground. The circle burned bright. "Then may the forest keep only what it owns." A blinding flash filled the air. Kojo felt his soul being ripped apart, part of it pulled toward the sky, the other dragged down into the roots below. He saw flashes, his mother's face, her prayers, the gazelle's final gaze, the river reflecting his sins. The spirit screamed as it was torn in two, half light, half shadow. Kojo felt it shred through his skin like shards of glass. Then silence. Smoke filled the hut. Efua collapsed. When it cleared, Kojo knelt in the center, motionless. Half of his body was human. The other half shimmered like mist. His right eye was brown, his left gold. He whispered hoarsely, "It's gone. I sent it back." But the ground beneath him cracked open. A thin hand of black smoke reached out, gripping his ankle. The spirit's voice whispered one last time, "I only borrowed your skin, hunter. Now you will borrow mine." Kojo's body convulsed violently. His veins turned black, spreading like ink under glass. He screamed, clawing the ground. Efua tried to pull him free, but the earth swallowed him to the chest. His face split with a terrible grin as he whispered, "Mother, forgive me." Then he was gone. The fire died. The forest grew silent again. But outside, in the puddle of rainwater near the hut's door, a reflection blinked. It wasn't Efua's. It was Kojo's, smiling. Morning arrived slowly, like a frightened child. Smoke still rose from the forest, carrying the scent of burnt herbs and blood. Nana Efua stood at the clearing's edge, her face streaked with ash and tears. The circle of salt was broken. Kojo was gone. Only the sound of distant hooves echoed, faint, fading, almost like laughter. When she returned to the village, the people gathered silently. No one asked what had happened. They saw it in her eyes, that something sacred had been disturbed, something ancient had awakened. That night, the elders held a ceremony. They poured libations for Kojo's soul and for the spirit of the white gazelle. They buried Kojo's spear beneath a sacred tree, warning that no one should ever touch it again. Weeks passed. The forest seemed calmer, at least for a while. But then strange things began. Children claimed to see Kojo standing by the river, washing his hands, though no one dared go near. Women hanging clothes by the water said they saw his reflection beside theirs, though he wasn't there. Hunters reported finding hoofprints near their huts, but not from any living animal. The elders called these Kojo's echoes. Efua knew better. She knew he wasn't gone. He had simply crossed into the realm between worlds, the place of reflections. One night the moon turned red again. Efua went to the river carrying a lantern and a small mirror. She set it on a rock, staring into the still surface. "Kojo," she whispered, "are you at peace?" For a moment, the reflection showed nothing but her wrinkled face. Then ripples formed. Kojo appeared. His eyes calm, his expression unreadable. "Peace," he said softly. "The spirits have none. I walk between their breaths." "You must rest," Efua begged. "Let go of what binds you." Kojo smiled faintly. "It isn't me that clings. It's them." He lifted his hand from the reflection and suddenly, the air around her turned cold. In the trees behind, shadows moved. Dozens of them, faces made of mist and bone. The spirits of the hunted, all wearing fragments of skin that shimmered like mirrors. "They come for the proud," Kojo whispered. "For those who forget the world breathes with them, not beneath them." Efua wept. "Then what shall we tell the children?" "Tell them to look at the forest with respect. Tell them that the earth has memory, and every footprint is a promise it will collect again." Then his image faded, leaving only the reflection of the red moon. After that night, Efua sealed every mirror in her home. She covered every water bowl. She refused to look into her own reflection again. Years passed. Kojo's name became a warning told by firelight. Parents whispered it when their children grew arrogant. Hunters prayed it before entering the woods. They said, "May we never wear another's skin." Over generations the legend grew. Some said Kojo became the watcher of faces, a spirit who guards the boundary between human and divine. He watches every mirror, every reflection, ensuring no soul dares to mock the sacred again. But others say he still wanders, searching for his mother's forgiveness. Once a trader passing through Ngoro claimed to have seen him at dusk, a tall man with one golden eye, standing by the river. He said Kojo spoke softly. "The forest forgave me. I only wish I had listened before it had to scream." The tale of Kojo and the spirit who wore his skin is not just a story of fear. It is a story of arrogance, of the human need to dominate what should be revered. In many African traditions, the boundary between the living and the spirit world is thin, thinner than a breath, thinner than the surface of water. To break that balance is to invite your reflection to judge you. Kojo's downfall was not the hunt. It was the pride that made him believe he could own the sacred. And pride, when left unchecked, becomes the perfect doorway for darkness. So when you look into still water, remember, reflection is not just light bouncing back. It is the soul of the world looking at you, asking, "Do you still remember me?" If your heart is proud, look away. Because some reflections, once noticed, will not let go. The spirit who wore my skin, A haunting reminder that every sin casts two shadows. One you can see, and one that waits for you on the other side of the mirror. If you ever find your reflection smiling before you do, don't smile back. Wait. And run. If this story sent chills down your spine, like, share, and subscribe to Scary African Tales by Sana, where forgotten spirits speak. And every story dares you to look a little deeper into your own reflection.